My name is Nyasha Mtsekwa. I'm the Regional Executive for Adapt IT here in Nairobi. We are Adapt IT's software solutions business, and we will be taking you through what I think is one of the exciting topics right now, the Internet of Things. We are going to be in this panel session joined by our partners floLIVE and CommsCLOUD, and I'll introduce the attendees just now. But the thing that brought us together was just trying to understand better how to provide IoT solutions across the continent that are not only scalable, but cost-effective. And I think the three-way partnerships that we have with floLIVE, CommsCLOUD, and Adapt IT will really answer that question. So some of the things that we'll talk to today, we hope to cover why connectivity, mobile connectivity solutions are outdated in Africa. What are the kind of challenges that we see? What are the benefits? And our panelists will go through that. Our panelists will also go through how to build, the best way to build IoT initiatives around the continent, especially as we start talking about borderless Africa. We know that the African Free Trade Agreement has made the continent the largest free trade or borderless trade continent in the world. But what does that mean from an IoT perspective? And we're going to talk to that. And then just talking about some smart strategies for scaling IoT solutions, right? Initially, IoT was really based on building platforms for machine-to-machine conversations in factories and industrial parks. But as we try to understand movement and try and figure out how things are coming together, there's a question of how do you actually scale it out of the industrial park into the road infrastructure, and then of course across borders. So we'll talk to that. Let me introduce our panelists who are, more intelligent and knowledgeable about IoT than I am. We'll start with floLIVE. We have Ronnie Cohen. Ronnie, just say hello to the people.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. Thanks for everyone for joining us from all over, as I see, all over the continent. I'm Ronnie Cohen, one of the founders of floLIVE. I'm really very, very appreciative of all our partners here today, CommsCLOUD and Adapt, Stephen and Marco. So looking forward to also meeting everyone who's going to be at AfricaCom. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yasha.
Great. Thanks very much, Ronnie. And then we have Peter Walsh from CommsCLOUD. Say hi, Peter.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending where you are. And if you got up in the middle of the night to watch the webinar, you deserve a special mention. Let me know. But pleased to have you all here today, and looking forward to the conversation.
Then we have Stephen Sutherland and Marco Almeida from Adapt IT, my colleagues.
Nyasha, thanks very much for the intro. And yes, I think good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody who might be on the call. And very, very privileged to be here. I'm looking forward to being able to answer maybe some of those questions that you might have for us. And thanks to our partners, Peter and Ronnie from floLIVE and CommsCLOUD, to agreeing for us to do this. This has been really great, and we're looking forward to a good webinar.
Great. Then just some housekeeping rules. I'm going to let Ronnie, Peter, and Steve just take us through a little bit of what their organizations do. And then we're going to have questions. We're going to open it up into a panel format where I'll ask some questions. However, I would really, really be interested to see and to hear about, your questions. And so if you could put those into the Q&A, that would be best. The chats, we generally lose questions when we use the chat. So please use the Q&A for that. I want this to be a very interactive session, so please do pose as many questions as possible. And it's going to be less talking from me and more engaging with the panelists as we try and learn together how to make IoT in Africa simple. With that, I want to just invite Ronnie back to give us an idea of who floLIVE is and what they're trying to do. And then we'll have Peter Walsh and then Steve following from there. Ronnie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nyasha. Again, thank you for everyone who joined us from all over. There's really a wide variety of people. Some of our friends that we know in the industry and some of our partners and mobile operator friends as well. So I'll give a little background. So floLIVE, one of the co-founders of floLIVE. floLIVE was established in 2015 with the view to enable cellular connectivity for the IoT sector across the world, and some of the challenges that we were facing back then and even more now, where the numbers are actually growing and we see the sort of adoption now of cellular IoT, even where Wi-Fi is now concerned. So the numbers are really growing. I think the numbers that we've all were expecting some years ago have finally come to fruition, and we're all, I think the whole industry is really excited by that. The floLIVE is the infrastructure behind many of the mobile operators, IoT service providers, our MVNO partners. Really what we have built is the infrastructure, the cellular, the mobile infrastructure behind the IoT connectivity. And that really involves our core network, distributed core network infrastructure, which is in physical servers as well as in the cloud across the world in tens of locations, also in Africa as well. And it involves our mobile operator partners as well, who provide us with the connectivity on the ground inside their respective geographic locations. And on top of that, a layer of management, which is a full layer, multi-layer of management for connectivity management for their SIM cards in the market, as well as obviously the eSIM industry, but also the whole billing and management of pricing, etc. So really what we've created is the infrastructure to allow IoT cellular connectivity to take place, and we're specifically talking about distributed products. So our customers are selling IoT and need IoT connectivity across the world, but here specifically today we'll talk just about Africa. So that infrastructure allows them to have a single currency, single management tool across Africa with a high performance network. And I think that's really where we come in, and we provide that to our mobile operator partners, to our IoT service provider partners, to our large enterprise partners, that single pane of glass that they could manage their IoT devices from a high performance network point of view, security point of view, billing point of view, and really have that strong management capability around it. And we talk about management as quite a large scope, but really management comes down to security. It comes down to transferring the data, the physical sort of metadata of your SIMs to the right place within your organization or your enterprise customers organization, their IT environment. So all of that, its rules, permissions, all of that is managed via our platform. I think that, being with Adapt IT today really is proving that exact model that we have. Strong partners who are strong within their respective industries, the security, the utility industry, the transport, logistics, the medical industry, education. I think that really proves our point here, because each industry and each subsector has some varied needs, and those needs are really what we're helping to solve for our partners. So I don't want to take too much time and take away from the discussion, but thank you, Nyasha, for that.
Thanks, Ronnie. And I like the conversation about a secure network, secure and resilient. I think that those two things are really, really core when you're talking about some of the industries like healthcare and education, which you mentioned. Peter, if you could give us just a brief on who CommsCLOUD is for our audience.
Yes, Nasha, thank you. Appreciate the introduction. Thanks, Ronnie. So CommsCLOUD see ourselves as a pure business-to-business company. Our clients are either OEMs, large integrators, or IoT service providers. They're diverse. Our client base is very diverse and located in multiple regions across Africa. And over the last 24 months, we've seen a strong entry from Europe and Asia into Africa, and these OEMs and service providers are reaching out to us for reasons that will become obvious as we discuss Africa and why Africa needs simple IoT. So we provide a one-stop shop for scaling IoT solutions around the globe. Our partnership with floLIVE has stretched over 6 years now, and we've developed a really strong or a comprehensive understanding of the connectivity challenges across Africa. And challenging is a polite word. With limited coverage on technologies, Africa is largely still a 2G continent, unless you're in a metro, and no single operator that we found being able to give you widespread access to connectivity. We've gone down the road with floLIVE of this multi-operator SIM solution that we found that our clients needed. And we find that by following the multi-operator solution, we address this need for seamless connectivity. You know, the theme for us at the moment, and Stephen spoke about it, is borderless solutions and borderless connectivity. And you cannot do that unless you've got a solution that provides that kind of coverage. And floLIVE's network and their connectivity management services and their ability to manage SIM solutions with the remote SIM provisioning has really empowered us over the last 6 years to reach our initial goals in broadening our reach into Africa. It's been an amazing journey. We're in 45 countries now with 450 end customers, and we're just excited about the future for Africa. Thank you. Thanks, Nasha.
Thanks, Peter. And I like what you said, the aggregation the floLIVE has gone and aggregated all these networks and created one network. And that's the key to offer a seamless solution to our customers. Steve, maybe share a little bit about Adapt IT and how, solution is now, spreading. It's not just a telco solution, but it's a multi-industry solution.
Thanks, Nasha. I think first of all, maybe just a little bit of background information, which might enable the understanding. So Adapt IT, we're a vertically specialized software development house. We work in very specific sectors so that we understand that sector completely, and we don't allow ourselves to get distracted. So each of the sectors, whether it's education, manufacturing, hospitality, whether it's our financial services side, potentially our public sector, or just a multi-industry offering, energy, and specifically what we're going to be chatting today is telecoms. I'm the divisional exec for the telecom side of the business. We're also very, very much focused within this space. We talk about telecommunications, which can be a very broad subject all on its own. So maybe just to hone in a little bit, is in the telecom side, I would say probably about 90+% of our business is within the mobile operator space. And obviously that's probably the biggest feeder into the African continent, with fixed line probably being non-existent even in some countries. So if you have a look at the slide there, you can see we operate even within the mobile network operator space. We're again segment ourselves into those very specific areas. So whether it's anything from the KYC right up to our analytics platform, I think today we're going to be focusing just a little bit on the IoT or data management side of things, and that's where our partnership with floLIVE and CommsCLOUD really comes to the fore, and we're going to have a big focus on that. But even beyond this, our biggest shareholders are the CSI Group, which is a Canadian-based $21 billion cap company. So that gives us exposure even beyond the sectors that we kind of look at, and gives us a really good global footprint. But just on the telecom side, we come with quite a proud pedigree. We've been operating in this space probably for in excess of about 30 years, dealing with anything from the mobile network operators as well as to their end user customers. So we have a really good understanding not only of what the demands coming through from the market are, what the demands coming through from a corporate are, how these demands are either serviced by the MNO or how we assist them in being able to actually do that. So we understand some of the challenges really, really well, having faced this not only from our partner MNO sector, but also from some of the end user customers. So yes, looking forward to being able to service this market a little bit directly now, without too much of a dependency on the MNOs because of the floLIVE CommsCLOUD partnership. And yeah, let's see how this develops through some of the questions I know you've got lined up for us, Nyasha. So let's move on to those.
Yeah, great. And again, our audience, we didn't want to have a death by PowerPoint session, and we really wanted to be about your questions and your understanding. We've got the panelists, as you've heard and seen, who have great experience in the IoT space over a couple of decades together. Now, I think maybe the first question that will probably be popping into people's minds is, what is the opportunity for IoT on the continent? And maybe even we can hone into some of the industries that are properly ready for IoT. And then maybe, Steve, you can take that, and from Ronnie's perspective, maybe you can talk to, then how does floLIVE, and I want to come back to that security, because cybersecurity is a big thing right now, right? And making sure that your network is secure. And maybe you can talk to how, even in those industries, they can feel safe that, using floLIVE is going to give them the security that they need. So, Steve, maybe you could start off with just talking to where the opportunity sits from an IoT perspective.
Thanks, Nyasha. I think maybe just to sort of set the scene a little bit, sometimes when we talk about IoT, everybody thinks about an unintelligent device sitting at the end of the network. But I think in nowadays, we need to consider ourselves as IoT, because it's anything that touches, connects to the greater network or to the web. And it's anything that uses data. So we're a data-driven world. And even I think where this really, really speaks to the African continent is that mostly across Africa, the connectivity to data is mobility or is mobile. So it works through some kind of a SIM card somewhere along the line. So I think that just broadens the potential proliferation of technology across this whole IoT space. But maybe let's hone in a little bit, as you mentioned, Nash, on some of the industries. I don't think there's an industry in this world that's not data-driven. Even if we think about food and agri, with Africa positioning itself to be the bread baskets for the rest of the world, just about every single agri implementation runs on devices, measuring soil content, measuring when the sprinklers get switched on, and a whole host of other applications within that space. Just about everything in Africa finds its way to its destination from the source on the back of a truck. So transport, huge user of IoT, whether it's fleet management, whether it's vehicle tracking, whether it's on-demand video, or anything else that fits within the logistics chain. The transport industry, hugely dependent on IoT and on reliable connectivity. Education, remote learning, this is sometimes how students get access to an education, is they become remote learning, and the way that they connect, whether it's their phone or some smaller Wi-Fi device, or whether it's a classroom, connected classroom, but everything, connected world, connected classroom, connected pupil, connected world, it just doesn't stop. So I think if we think about IoT, we think about Africa, we think about the world's coming to Africa. Africa is, I think, teaching the world how to connect without fixed line. So in terms of where it starts and where it ends, it's a very exciting space to be in right now.
Great. Ronnie, I don't know if you want to just talk to how security works on the floLIVE platform.
So I think what we need to look at really in security, and I think this relates to everyone in the industries, is the packet gateways that are spread around the different countries. And I think for the audience who's less familiar with it, really the packet gateway is your IP router that you have at home, This, on a larger scale, basically manages the cellular devices that are in the field, in this case, the IoT devices that are in the field. As such, mobile operators in their nature build these packet gateways and core network infrastructure, the management servers that manage the cellular devices inside their own countries for the use of their geographical region. And floLIVE has built this infrastructure across the world and across Africa as well, and constantly growing that infrastructure. That infrastructure of packet gateways and core networks around Africa is allowing us to manage the connectivity of those specific devices and create policies and security. And those, I won't get into too much depth in that, but we have quite a varied security measures and policies that we can adopt for specific customers. And those security policies are often are often solving latency times, or offering efficiency in the network, which means you get better coverage. Perhaps we can swap between networks. Not every network has the best coverage in every country. So swapping those networks remotely or putting some logic on the actual SIM application creates a certain level of resilience, but secondly, also a level of security. By switching networks, you're not really switching policy. The policy remains the same, but the connectivity, you still get that high level of connectivity, but you're also always aiming for low latency solutions, so really a high performance network. So touching on extra levels of security, I would say that in some cases, and I know that some of our audience here today also are in some discussions about mobile private network. So in that sense, floLIVE already, for our large enterprise customers or the enterprise customers of our MNOs, really we are already providing mobile private network and in the form of a slice. So we slice the network, or we slice the packet gateway and the core specifically to customers that require that level of security. And that means that only devices that are connected to that core are allowed to connect. That really puts together an entire level of security, which is really unparalleled when connecting to sort of regular mobile network, which is completely mixed with human users, etc., and priority on the network, etc. So that all that priority is given to IoT devices on our network. Sort of that gives a flavor to it. But we can always, if there's anyone in the audience who would later want to discuss it, security is a large area. And again, there's security between fixed devices, there's security between moving devices. There's high bandwidth applications of security, sort of like cameras, but also low bandwidth security applications around sort of meters and utilities. They're vulnerable in different ways, I would say. So, high bandwidth sort of cameras, they might be vulnerable from a man in the middle attack, but the utility one usually would be vulnerable in case someone is trying to attack them in order to get to the wider utility network. So again, utilities are very, very susceptible to attacks as well. A lot of effort has been put into securing utilities, gas, electricity, water networks, because of the requirement for, they're seen as a national security asset in each country.
Great, thanks very much, Ronnie. And I think that's critical. I think maybe the next webinar we should actually have is talking to security, because I think you've touched on a very important piece, which is, different use cases have different security requirements, and we need to answer those for our customers. I wanted to ask, and maybe back to the Adapt IT team, is just to understand what your decisioning was to onboard floLIVE and CommsCLOUD. Why did this make sense? Why did this partnership make sense? As you see your market in the wider African context, and then obviously in that industry, on the industry side. Steve, I think you can take that one.
Thanks, Nyasha. Look, I think in terms of how one grows a market nowadays, it's reinventing the wheel just delays your time to market and obviously delays the value and the benefit that you can take to the end user. So looking for mature partners who have already proven themselves in various areas and then partnering up with that just allows you to be able to take the speed of delivery to the end user. But I think in terms of why the partnership, nobody buys toys without the batteries anymore. So in the past, I think our approach to market has obviously been through the mobile network operators and then helping them to actually serve their end users. But as I think we've already discussed, borderless Africa means that you can't only have a relationship with one single mobile operator, you kind of need to have a relationship with all of them. Otherwise, you become a little bit trained to that particular geography of the mobile network operator that you used to. So I think the partnering up with CommsCLOUD and floLIVE has allowed us to put the batteries into the management platform, and now we can offer a unique selling proposition to the end users, because floLIVE now allows us to complete our management solution with a market-leading connectivity offering. So this also allows us to be able to move across the borders and go directly to the end user. So instead of the end user having to pick his mobile network operator, now he just picks the service that's going to serve him best. But I think maybe I'll let Marco just chat a little bit about some of the challenges in the platform itself. And I think that will probably answer the question as why this was such a good partnership and why the synergies are there. Marco, hand over to you.
Thank you, Stephen. I think you mentioned a bit earlier, we spoke through our different customer base that DAPT has, extensive in terms of finance, energy, etc. And we've been able to sort of service those customers pretty well within the SA market, but obviously extending beyond the borders has become a challenge with us in terms of how we operate or how we've been engaging with MNOs. And this is where this relationship just was a hand-to-glove fit in terms of what we could do together. Now, in terms of the platform, just briefly, I mean, we've got an online portal where we'll be able to access secure login for customers, and it brings the capabilities that our customers are looking for. Being able to have a cost center structure or allocation within the platform to be able to allocate costs or allocate systems to their end customers and users and be able to recover that. I mean, the proactive budgeting that comes with the platform, that's really underpinned by the real-time management in terms of how we're processing data within the tool and the ability to easily navigate between networks as a SIM or as the device or asset is moving across Africa. What we also found was great is that we're able to bring our customers onto a multi-tenanted platform within a cloud-hosted environment. So it's a great benefit as opposed to trying to deliver on-prem solutions. And certainly, what's really attractive to our customers and to us in terms of this platform was very much the low investment in order to get started. You know, it's quick in and can easily scale along the way. You're not stuck into long-term contracts with MNOs or even us for that matter. It's very much a very flexible platform. And then at the same time, we're seeing a lot of the market, a lot of the customers are on the traditional plastic SIMs. They are starting to look to the future in terms of eSIMs and iSIMs, and this offers that capability. It's already proven, tested within this platform and this environment. So it's an easy transition for our customers as and when they get to that stage in their journey. And then, of course, the great support that we get from the team to be able to support this in our clients. So yeah, that's me. Thank you, Nash.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something, Marco, and I just want you to go down that rabbit hole just a bit in terms of the movement from the plastic SIM to the eSIM, because some of the devices that are coming into the market already have that capability, and I think that's that's part of the flexibility that floLIVE gives, right?
No, 100%. What I would suggest is maybe Peter or Ronnie to take that one. I think they probably speak a bit better to it, but maybe better position than I am.
Great. We'll just as we're talking now, you should have a poll in front of you just asking about use cases. Please do respond to that poll, and I'm seeing the questions come in. We've got Alex and Pablo who will be answering those questions. Alex, actually, we will answer your question right now. And I think, Peter, you can take this because we wanted to basically dive deep into, what are the challenges for IoT on the African continent. Peter, I want you to answer that and still answer Alex's question, which was, in case of a busy network or unavailability, how fast is the switch to another available network? Please go ahead and answer those two questions as you respond.
Thanks, Nasha. And Alex, thank you for your question. So Alex, is actually, and the audience, it's a great segue into the challenges in Africa. You know, the African market is huge and growing. I read recently, as a few weeks ago, that the population growth will mean that in Africa, 25% of the human beings alive will live in Africa by 2050. But to answer your question, Alex, the busy network or unavailable rates, connectivity rates might be too high for your budget, so you might have them blocked, and the device can still see the network, is dependent on how the ecosystem marries together. So how's the modem and the hardware and our SIM card working together? So our optimum time is 6 minutes. If you want to see our SIM cards supporting a device that can't switch. So Ronnie can maybe talk about it later, and if we've got time, we can dive down there, but we are enabling our customers access to an API on the SIM from the firmware on the device. So you can actually decide yourself how long you're willing to wait based on what your modem is seeing in the area or the region that it is and what signals it's getting. You can make those decisions on the new generation hardware yourself. You can say, okay, I'm prepared to wait 2 minutes. I've got 4 networks. I can't connect to this one, switch to the next one. And you can use our SIM applet to do that via an API, which is incredible technology. But back to so I hope that answers your question, Alex, and you can always email us. But a typical device is doing 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, it'll ban the mobile network operator and try switch itself. And our SIM card does that autonomously after 5 minutes as well. So the only proviso is that if you can't use the API, you want to make sure that you're not overwriting our 5-minute threshold. That's very important. But what we see in Africa is... Sorry?
Sorry, I stopped you. Go ahead, please. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So we see our clients around the challenges in Africa coming to CommsCLOUD with fatigue in the areas of coverage, cost, resiliency, and redundancy, and just being able to talk to somebody instead of sending an email for support to a contact center. And we find by addressing these key issues, we've seen a significant growth curve on our side and high retention rates. You know, we spoke about it today, if you want high uptime and resiliency, you need a multi-IMSI operator profile approach. We use 5 to cover Africa. But then talking to challenges, the moment, actually talking to Alex's question in a bleak way, the moment you move to a multi-IMSI solution, depending on West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, Europe, Asia, you immediately have hardware challenges and MNO issues. So in the past, these customers that come to us, they bought a $20 device, they put a roaming MNO SIM card into the device and sent it on its merry way. And that approach is not sustainable anymore and affordable if as a vendor you want to compete in Africa. We see our customers in Africa expect high uptime in a challenging environment with coverage issues around the bands. And yeah, you know, a lot of the technology is old. The MNO platforms were built for voice and data, and they don't cater for IoT's specific needs. And the biggest challenge of all is that our clients are underserviced from a technical support aspect, especially support and the hardware SIM integration aspect. You know, so there's lots and lots of education required, and yeah, it's a big ask growing IoT in Africa, and so I think a key aspect of success is going to be how role players collaborate in terms of connectivity, training, education, and integration of these disparate ecosystems. Because, you know, our favorite complaint from customers is your SIM card must just work, you know, but the SIM card is, and the connectivity and the portal and the MNOs and the hardware and the modems and the bands, it's a you know, the reality of the ecosystems and how everything works together is a big curve, growth curve on what we're going to do as industry role players in terms of investing and upskilling our clients.
Great. I wanted Ronnie to just jump in there. Sorry, Peter. Just on that same point, and I see there's a question from Matthew, which is tied to that, which is around the SIM applet API and the availability of documentation for that. If you could just come in there, Ronnie.
So about the switching and APIs question, obviously there's a very in-depth documentation about all our APIs. I think it's worth to mention that everything is available as an API. Also, all our actually everything you could do on the portal, you can kind of do on your API, on the APIs as well. So, and you can also work through them in parallel. But yes, there's quite comprehensive documentation around the API suites which allow you to switch. I was wanting to add to what Peter was saying with regards to the switching. The switching is there's no one thing that fits everyone. I mean, every use case has its own switching requirements. Some people would say that 5 minutes may be too long, and some people would say that it's way too fast. If for a device that, for example, only wakes up every 24 hours, I don't think we'd like to switch within 5 minutes if it doesn't communicate. So there's all sorts of use cases for that. And also we have to, Peter also mentioned something that's really important, is the hardware. Let's not forget, these are most hardware devices. Yes, they may be some sophistication in them, but they're not the latest hardware like an Apple, you know, the latest Apple phone or etc. So the hardware within it is usually to a specific band, etc. As Peter was saying, you know, low power LTE or 2G, etc. So we always, in that respect, what I would say that what we have learned and what we've developed as a consequence of our business is that we have developed a lab. We have our own lab, which we work with our enterprise customers or our mobile operators, enterprise customers, to certify these devices. And the switching between devices sometimes is a limitation of the modems as well on these devices. So we have learned to check all of these before, and many times we thought, well, there's nothing wrong with it, but we send it out to the field, and especially in Africa, it's not always easy to try and retract them or understand what's happening in the field. So we have a lab. We have quite a big team there. I think perhaps just under 10 people who work in this lab. And we certify devices, we test devices, we look at different modems that have come out. So every time one of the main modem manufacturers comes out with a new version, again, some of these may be regional versions as well of their modems. And we have a lot of experience in that, and we know what works, we know what doesn't work, we know what timeouts needs to be there. Again, this is mostly about because we've had the experience and we've got the scars to show for it. But yeah, it's a lot of knowledge base that's been built around it. So that's to add to Peter's comment about the switching.
Thanks very much, Ronnie. Thanks very much. And I guess something that Peter mentioned, and which is basically what we would say in Nairobi, jua kali, which is somebody just doing it without the professionalism that it requires, is putting a roaming SIM card in a device and just letting it go. I guess the question is why won't that work? Why do we need a multi-IMSI device? Why do we need some multi-IMSI SIM? And why do we need 5 networks? Why do we need switchovers? Right? What are we trying to prevent for us in that scenario?
with regards to multiple networks, I think that the key element is coverage. The key element is a high performance network. A device needs to be connected. There's nobody there who can do a restart. There's nobody there on a device that can, the absolute difficult use case is that you have something installed and then you need to go and do something to do whatever you need to do with it, whether it's a restart or whether it's... So a device needs to have some autonomy, and really the most of the autonomy is on the network side. And we've built more and more tools. And coming back to the previous questions, there is logic on the actual SIM, and there's logic on the network, and there's a combined logic in case something fails. And again, these are all things that we've learned en route. So the SIM application that runs the switching between the networks also has some logic in case we lose it altogether, and to fall back to something that we know it might work. It might not be the best network at that place, but it is definitely a fallback. And so the one thing we don't want to lose is we don't want to lose contact with the device. Otherwise, we've absolutely lost it.
Great. Thanks for that, Ronnie. There's one more question which I think I'll direct back to Steve, which from Alexandra, I hope I got it correct. Which domain has the most potential for IoT solutions in Africa? Steve, I think you can answer that one.
Thanks, Nyasha. I was actually, Alexandra, I was going to type the answer, and I was hoping Nyasha was going to ask us it'll just reduce the number of characters. Look, I suppose at the end of the day, the entire world is always commercially focused. And regardless of who's leading the IoT charge, I think if not already there, the fintech domain is probably going to rule, because everybody's going to be carrying their wallet on their phone. And I think we're already starting to see such a huge move in that direction. But as the industries pick up, and as the devices proliferate, and as people wanting to have a very, very close monitoring of what's going on, and I mean, that's what IoT allows you to do. I think there's probably going to be different leaders in that race at different times. But I think just from what I've been seeing in our experience, I do believe that fintech's going to be a strong contender for the leader in terms of IoT solutions. So we're already seeing it just in terms of POS devices and mobile wallet. I hope that answers your question.
Great, Steve. Thanks very much. There was a question which Pablo asked around whether we're looking at IoT satellite platforms and how these can be integrated seamlessly. So, Peter, I know you've answered that. Maybe you want to just say it out for everyone else to hear that answer.
Sure, no problem. So floLIVE are going live, and I'll let Ronnie step in here after me, because he's just smarter when it comes to network integration and closer to the coalface with the negotiation with the satellite companies. But floLIVE are going live with Skylo Q1 next year, as I said to Pablo, with more to follow as time goes by. We've seen Starlink going live here in Southern Africa in this quarter. I don't believe they integrated to any of the IoT operators or infrastructure players like floLIVE. But as Anna and Ronnie will tell you, it's hugely expensive. And so I don't know what the adoption is going to look like. There is definitely use cases for it, and I think I'll let Ronnie step in quickly.
I think what we are seeing here, first of all, with Skylo. So Skylo integrated into floLIVE's network acts as another one of our partners. So we really respect all our MNO partners, and Skylo is one of our other MNO partners, except that their network is in the sky. But we treat it as such. It's integrated within our SIM management platform as a network. And to those who are more familiar with it, some of the newer modems that are started coming out, or maybe some early versions, but we'll see a lot more next year, will support narrowband IoT on satellite. So the release 17 of 3GPP standards in the modem side as well call for a combined dual mode satellite narrowband, as well as a cellular, regular GSM, and we see those adoptions coming in, and especially for that very low bandwidth applications, the meters perhaps, or some of those trackers that require very little bandwidth. That's going to be an option. It's going to be an option for our customers. We've already a lot in the tracking industry. We see a lot of requirement for that, and the metering industry. But that is for where there's blind spots, where we don't have coverage across Africa. I think Africa is definitely going to be one of our wider adoptions of the satellite coverage. And that, again, this also requires a specific hardware module, which is a modem, which is specifically touches those bands. So I don't think we're going to see, the huge numbers that we have today. As Peter was saying, it is more expensive, but it does fit the very low bandwidth applications. But yes, we support it entirely. It's completely built into our network, just like any of our precious MNO partners.
Yeah, Ronnie, just a question here from Andrew Munene. What's the future of LP1 in Africa? Is it commercially available in our region on the long term? I'm not sure what LP1 is.
Yeah, so it's low power, all the low power. So I guess we're discussing specifically narrowband IoT. Narrowband is one of the mediums that we are. It's like a 2G and 3G and 4G and 5G. Where is that? It's an interesting question, because even in Europe or in other countries that we have low power or narrowband coverage, there isn't wide coverage. I cannot put my finger on one country where I could say, maybe apart from China, there's really good coverage in that. Can't really put my finger on it that I would, that I'd put my life on it, because I wouldn't really. You'd find it a lot in main cities, big metropolitan cities. You go outside of the main cities, I think you'd find that the coverage is low. I think the business case for that in the mobile operators wasn't strong enough. I think the monetizing that was very difficult for the MNOs. As such, they didn't invest in that perhaps. But in some, we see that in very few operators in Africa. Is there a future in there? It might be a good subset of 5G. And I think that maybe that's where we'll see more of that. So a sort of a low power 5G without a specific modem, I think similar to what we see in CAT-M on the LTE side. That's my sort of particular view on it. I may be wrong, but I think that I don't see that all the networks are going to start deploying narrowband. I think the 5G is more of a push right now. I think a lot of the MNOs in Africa are pushing 5G, and that's really, really good. It's a lot more efficient on the network. I think perhaps Africa will be, a year or two, or maybe more, but I don't believe much more for the sunset of the 3G, because eventually we're going to, it's all about the handset devices really that people have in their hands. But I think in general, we're going to see a lot more of the 5G rolling before we see low power narrowband. But I think 4G CAT-M is definitely going to be something we'll see. CAT-M1, sort of low power LTE, is going to be something that we'll see a lot more in Africa in 2024, 2025. And I think it's welcome. It's really something that has changed what we see in other places in the world. So low power modems, battery savings, very important. Everything to do with battery power works a lot better on CAT-M1 than it does on regular 2G or regular 4G.
Great. Thanks. And as usual with these webinars, as you get closer to the top of the hour, everyone rushes in with their questions. And we've got, I think we've just got one more question. And I think this is just also related to that, is the difference, or we've talked about narrowband IoT. Now the question is is Wi-Fi IoT going to be the standard going forward? And I know, Peter, you've answered that, but I wanted to just look at the use cases that Steve's spoken about, fintech, POS devices, and where they are and fleet management as the secondary market, and just ask ourselves a question, is it possible to answer those requirements with Wi-Fi only IoT? I don't know if Peter or Steve want to take that.
Look, I'll jump in there. If you let me just share my screen for those of you that can see it, and show you what 2G coverage looks like in Zambia, or I've lost it. Okay, so there's 2G coverage in Africa. I'm going to click on 3G and 4G now, and don't be surprised if you can't notice the difference, right? And I understand Wi-Fi, I understand LoRaWAN, but the geography and the scale and the size of Africa, it's going to take multiple protocols. You're just not going to do a one-size-fits-all with anything. And LoRaWAN and Wi-Fi is not in my wheelhouse, but I can tell you, you won't drive a truck into the middle of Zambia and find Wi-Fi on the side of the road. That's my best offer on that.
Yeah, Nyasha, maybe just a quick second in here. Just coming from the fleet management and vehicle tracking space, sometimes it takes a long time for the device fitted to the vehicle to also adapt to what those changes are. And not many fleet management devices that I know of in vehicle tracking, and even in terms of camera real-time video, it'll take a while for that industry to start picking up on the Wi-Fi. So I'm not saying it's an impossibility, but you probably find that's going to talk more to your static IoT devices and a little bit less to the mobile devices. Your mobile devices, as Peter's quite rightly said, can't always jump across from your 3G or from one device to the other. And I don't think Wi-Fi is going to be quite there for a good while yet, but we can't discount it. We obviously need to keep our eyes and ears open. We need to make sure, as Ronnie brought out earlier on, testing everything and making sure that we're ready for it when it does happen.
Perhaps I'll add here one more comment about this. So it's not necessarily that Wi-Fi isn't important in that respect, but Wi-Fi, for example, I'll give an example about a point-of-sale device. A point-of-sale device sits in a restaurant in a metropolitan area where there is good electricity and coverage, etc. And it's using Wi-Fi because it's cheaper, because there's no need for cellular. But the moment that internet's down, that business is out of business. I think we've seen more businesses go cashless. And the more we seem to be moving towards cashless, we're relying on those POS devices. And more customers come to us today where they have even in their Wi-Fi based devices, they have a cellular backup. And I think that's a key thing. There is an example, I'm not going to mention a specific name, but there is an example of a large theme park that had no internet because of some natural disaster. And then when it went back to work, they suddenly had no internet on their POS devices. And then thousands of their POS devices didn't work. There's many examples of that. And suddenly business say, well, we're out of business. We might as well have closed the restaurant, the coffee shop, whatever they're selling, etc. So I think that backup examples of Wi-Fi, yeah, it's not that we can say, oh, Wi-Fi has nothing to do with us. Yeah, it is in our base, but also there is a lot of backup in the cellular side. So the IoT side is a backup solution for Wi-Fi. One more comment I'd say, and that is the white goods industry has dabbled a lot with Wi-Fi, creating some smart white goods devices, washing machines, which you can sort of, sort out from afar or get some notification where your washing's done, etc. Fridges. The outcome of the reports that I've read is that sort of between 6 months to a year down the line from the day you started it, chances are your device is not going to be connected because you switched ISPs, your children have changed the password, etc., etc. So chances are a year down the line that device is not connected. A lot of them are thinking or defaulting to try and get some Wi-Fi, so get some cellular IoT in the white goods industry. There's a report that I read recently. And a lot of that is to do with diagnostic information as well for the devices. So yeah, there is, we're living in the same space, I'd say.
Great. Thanks very much, guys. We've come to the top of the hour, and we've gone over by 7 minutes. I think the discussion could have carried on. Thank you very much to our panelists for joining us. The question around how many MNOs are on the African continent, the answer is 181. So if you need to have a borderless solution, the answer is Adapt IT, CommsCLOUD, and floLIVE, and you've got just one MNO through us. So we would like to invite you guys to connect with us, especially those who are going to be at AfricaComm. Details of Ronnie, Peter, and Stephen and Marco are here on the screen. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much to all the attendees who asked questions. It was really great to interact with all of you. And yeah, we will be in touch. So if you do have more questions, please feel free to email, whether the CommsCLOUD team, Adapt IT team, or the floLIVE team, and we'll be able to respond to any of those questions. So thank you very much. And at this point, we'd like to close down the webinar. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you very much, Nyasha, for hosting us.
Yes,
Thanks, everybody.
absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. See you at AfricaComm.
Bye-bye.